Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of GREATIES from the 80s, I'm going to be talking about music that I love now. Of course, I'm a child of the 60s, and I love the music from then, and I love the 70s, but the 80s is really when I connected with music. That was when I made my own choices. I didn't listen to the radio, didn't let my friends tell me what to listen to. It's what I discovered myself, and that's why I'm still so passionate about that time in music. It was so exciting, so much going on. Now, each episode of GREATIES from the 80s is going to feature something different. It might be a top 10 list, it might be a focus on a particular band or a particular song or a particular album. There'll be popular bands, there'll be obscure bands. Hopefully it will bring back a lot of memories for you, or maybe even introduce you to something you missed the first time around. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of GREATIES from the 80s. On this episode of GREATIES from the 80s, I'm going to be talking about 10 great albums from the 80s. I'm not saying these are the 10 best albums from the 80s, or they're my 10 favorite albums. These are just 10 great albums that I think everybody should own. This first album is the debut solo album from a gentleman who played keyboards with Bruce Woolley and the Camera Club. He played keyboards on New Toy by Lena Lovitch, and he played keyboards on Foreigner's 4 album, especially the song Urgent. I'm talking about Thomas Dolby. This is the golden age of wireless, came out in 1982. Fantastic synth pop, great songs. This version here is the deluxe version. When the album first came out in the UK, it had this cover. When it came out in the US, it had this cover. But then the post-album single, She Blinded Me with Science, became so popular that they rejigged the album and released it in America again with this cover. Confusing, I know, and too much information. But here is the deluxe edition. This has the full, complete UK album plus B-sides and She Blinded Me with Science and remixes and a DVD. Came out in 1982, Thomas Dolby, Golden Age of Wireless. This next album is the third album from a band from Liverpool. Their first 2 albums kind of classified them as synth pop, but this is the album that really showed that there was so much more depth to them. I mean, I was a fan already. I knew that there was more depth to the band. I knew that they weren't just ragamuffin synth pop band. I'm talking about China Crisis. This is their third album, came out in 1985, and it is smooth and warm and delicious. It's so many great songs on it. It's produced by Walter Becker from Steely Dan, and you can really tell because the band has that smooth pop with a jazz feel to it, and it is superb. Walter Becker was so important to the band at this time that they actually featured him as the 6th official member of the band. Of course, it didn't last, but still, it's a great nod from them to Walter. Incredible album, King in a Catholic Style, You Did Cut Me, Black Man Ray. This is the deluxe edition that features a bonus disc with tons of bonus tracks. This is an album that you should cuddle with at night. It will definitely keep you warm. It is smooth and just totally engaging and wonderful, and it still sounds great all these years later. From 1982, this is the band's second album, and everybody here knows the hit single from this album, but have you really heard the album, which is absolutely stupendous. Even if the single annoys you now, you really need to hear the album. I'm talking about Kevin Rowland and Dexys Midnight Runners and the album To Rye. This is really a wonderful, I'd say close to a masterpiece. Clive Langer and Alan Winstonley produced it, so it has that nice full band sound. Expertly produced. Kevin Rowland, a unique vocalist, unique songwriter, some great pop songs on this. And of course, most people are probably tired of Come On Eileen by now, but that's the last song of the album, so you don't have to deal with it. You can just stop listening after the song before it. Everything before it, though, is incredible, amazing. Until I Believe in My Soul, old, and my favorite, Let's Make This Precious. This is the deluxe edition featuring loads of bonus tracks. You really need to listen to this. If you hate Come On Eileen, then just listen to the rest of the album. And I laugh every time I say Come On Eileen. I'm sorry. Next up comes another album from 1982. They grew with each album, but this, I think, is their masterpiece. I'm talking about XTC English Settlement. It is absolutely stellar. The previous albums were produced by John Leckie, then Steve Lillywhite, but this is produced by Hugh Padgham, and it is incredible. Senses Working Overtime, Ball and Chain, so many amazing songs, so much depth. They just dumped the whole new wave sound and just like matured in so many levels on this album. It is incredible. Both Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding stepped up in their songwriting. XTC English Settlement, an absolutely stellar record. Next album is from 1983. It is a band from Australia, and if you love Nick Lowe's Side of Rock Pile, and if you love Squeeze, then you should love Mental as Anything. This is their fourth album, Creatures of Leisure. Why did I pick this? Because it just had so many memories, so many great songs. This is a band, 5 members. 4 of them are singer-songwriters, so you're getting just all this great material on one album. These guys are talented, amazing, and there's actually 2 versions of the album here. This version comes in a box set, and this actually has the American track listing to the album. So if any of you are familiar with the American one, you'll want to get that CD. This here has the Australian track listing, which has 2 songs that aren't on the American version, and they're 2 great songs, Space to Let and Not Enough. Both of those are wonderful. That is Mental as Anything, came out in 1983, an absolutely stellar album. Any album by Mental as Anything would be good. That's my personal favorite at this moment. That might change tomorrow. This next album came out in 1982, Haircut 100. Pelican West. What an incredible album. These guys are in their late teens, early 20s, and they're playing this mixture of Latin, salsa, jazz, funk, soul. It was just hugely, incredibly amazing. These guys are young kids. Kids today at this age are just lip syncing to pre-recorded music, or they're playing some kind of music that's derivative of Blink-182 or Green Day or, whatever the emo bands are. This is the deluxe edition here. This has Fantastic Day. It has Love Plus One and so many others. My favorite song on this album is called Lemon Fire Brigade. Absolutely wonderful. Haircut 100, Pelican West. You need to own it. Next album came out in 1980. It is the debut album from the English Beat. This is incredible. It's pop ska. It is wonderful. It's got Tears of a Clown. It's got Mirror in the Bathroom. It's got Rankin's Full Stop. This is an incredibly delightful, upbeat album. They were closer to the real ska sound like the Specials, but they were just more joyful and upbeat like Madness. So a great little combination of there. And this is an absolutely incredible album. It is also available as a UK version, and which has the same cover, but of course it says The Beat and slightly different track listing. The American version added Tears of a Clown, which is my favorite version of that song, even over Smokey's. Next up, also from 1982. This seems to be very 1982 heavy. I guess we probably figured out what my favorite year of the 80s is. It is Tropical Gangsters from Kid Creole and the Coconuts. This is really the album that introduced me to just how wonderful it is to get salsa and swing and funk and pop all mixed up together. But yeah, this was absolutely an amazing album. It was released in the US as Wise Guys, but it had the same exact tracks. Things like Annie, I'm Not Your Daddy, I'm a Wonderful Thing, Baby, and of course Stool Pigeon, which is my favorite song. This deluxe edition here has bonus tracks. Kid Creole and the Coconuts. I mean, look, any album with August Darnell and Cody Mundy and 3 beautiful ladies and a bunch of great musicians, it's just so... The only time that this album makes you feel sad is when it's over. But I have a solution for that. Get up and press play again, or put the needle back down, whichever format you prefer. Next album is from 1983. It is by a band called Freur. That's right, F-R-E-U-R, Freur. And this is kind of haunting. It's weird. It's quirky. But the song Doot Doot is just this beautifully haunting, weird, wonderful mix of whatever, and it's just fantastic. But also, like, Tender Surrender is great, and it does get weird at times, but it's really an album that just can't be beat, because it's moody. It's not happy like what I'm talking about here, but it's very moody and fascinating and unique. There's actually a version available on Cherry Red Records that has the Doot Doot album and their second album on it as well, called Get Us Out of Here. Interesting thing about Freur is they became Underworld. Does anybody remember the band Underworld, who became real big techno boffins in the 90s and early 2000s? Yeah, that's them. And then finally, another album from 1982. I'm going to be talking about my favorite Depeche Mode album. One of these days I'm going to do a Depeche Mode video and talk about all the albums. But right now I'm going to talk about one. This is my favorite, and it's definitely not their favorite. It is A Broken Frame. This is their second album. This is after Vince Clarke left, and it's the first album that featured Martin Gore as the sole songwriter, and I think it is superb. I think it's amazing. I think it's moody. It's not that upbeat, bubbly synth pop of the first album. In fact, it has that foreshadowing of the dark mood that they would follow in the years to come. Songs like See You, Photograph of You, The Meaning of Love, just so many great songs on this. This is the remaster. It has a bonus DVD with like a little mini documentary and some bonus tracks, but fantastic. Anyway, that is 10 albums from the 80s that I wanted to tell you about. Fantastic, great, wonderful. I call it the dayglo decade, and for me, it truly is. It just, listening to this music, even looking at these covers, takes me right back to the times that I was buying these albums. I mean, every one of these albums I bought when they were brand new. I usually bought them on import and domestic, and I bought all the singles and the 12-inch singles. Those are gone. Don't ask me about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the albums that I picked, and I hope it inspires you to go either buy them or listen to them. In any case, thank you for hanging out. Well, that's it for this episode of GREATIES from the 80s. I hope that you discovered something. I hope there was maybe music that reminded you of a great time in your life. And I hope it gives you a spring in your step. Now, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.